read the Tower of Babel, written by Morris West, who's a very lucid writer. And he presents this whole problem as something that can't be solved. And I hate to be negative. I'm not really impartial. But there are two different philosophies involved with the Israelis and the Arabs. And he gives the point, and he projects it, that this can never be solved in the future or any time because each country is aggressive in its own way and they have their own rights. But nobody will ever back down or give in.
Well, I think the answer to that has to be that if they took that particular point of view that there was no solution, then everybody might as well give up right now. And I don't think any either side is willing to do that.
Well, I think
it's almost like the Asian loss of faith.
No, I think the best answer is the mere fact that Mr. Moore is here, that he represents rather significant group in Israel, definitely in who they are. They are not crackpots, they are not people outside the mainstream of Israeli life. Secondly, in the last election, they also were numerically important. And this is the most important thing. There are not two identical blind camps. We are talking about camps that might look from a distance, or to people who are not familiar with the fact, as two blind camps, each one with their own claims.
Sir, you're talking about abstracts.
Let's even talk about practical things. Here is a real-life Israeli with all the credentials you want, who says, yes, we have to admit that the Arabs have their own national claims, they have their own rights to nationhood and so on. People like him exist in Israel, people like him exist on the other side. The question, the problem is, would their voices be loud enough and clear enough before a disaster like the nuclear Holocaust come around?
I'm not getting nuclear holocaust.
Or the next bloody round, yeah.
Which is what it comes down to. The small nuclei of population, where you talk about the common man, which people tend to forget. Because I'm not bleeding hard, nor am I for one side or the other. I don't have to be. But I really wonder if anybody could ever sit down and really talk this thing out.
Well, they're going to have to, aren't they?
Possible.
Well, again, the answer is obviously yes, because Mr. Moore did that.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Did you want to say something, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I want to say to the woman, to listeners, to many other listeners, that the Palestinian-Arab dispute is like a Greek tragedy where both sides have right and both sides are wrong. And if we allow things to develop at their natural course, there will be incessant bloodshed and people will die on both sides. And then a day may come when there will be no Israelis and no Palestinians, and a third party will profit of the country. And the problem is to decide that history has played a dirty trick on us by giving birth to two nations on the same land. And only backward children can't understand that another child has also the right to the mother. In this case, we have to accommodate and to find a way for reconciliation, to decide that there is no other way than to share the country and to live peacefully together for the development of the country and for the benefit of all of the Middle East in the future. I believe that this way is a good way, and it is possible, because after many bloodshed, people start to understand that the way of peace, if the legitimate rights, as my friend John kind of put it, are observed on both sides, there is a possibility to live together within maybe a broader framework, a political framework of the Middle East, like a confederation of all the countries of the Middle East. The Middle East in this case may become a very prosperous region, and people will live there happy, and there will be no wars in the future.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll take a few final calls right after these words. Caution you once again. Yes, sir.
I want to make this very brief. I've been listening to your program and these two gentlemen with you. Now, I love and believe in my Maker and my Creator, the Creator of this universe. Now, if you will read, and if they will read, and if they will believe this, now God said, if we will bless Israel, Jerusalem, and He will bless us. Now, if we curse them, He will curse us. Now, He said in Ezekiel 37 how He would reestablish the nation, and it's His nation. And in 38th and 39th chapters of Ezekiel, He tells about the war, Jacob's trouble, and exactly how it's going to come out.
All right, sir. We'll look to the Bible for the answers. Thank you. Hi, Orange County. You're on the air, KFI. Good evening to you.
I missed the first part of your show, and I was wondering where your guest was from.
Okay, let me be very brief about this because I've mentioned it a number of times. My guest is from Israel. He was the leader of the Stern Gang, which was the terrorist organization that fought the British prior to the establishment of the State of Israel, and was a member of the Israeli Parliament.
Okay, and I was wondering how he feels about the position that the UN took.
The position that the UN took about Israel. You mean recently with Arafat?
Yeah.
Yes, he's asking how you feel about that.
Well, I understand that Israel some 30 years ago asked to be represented and to be listened by the United Nations. And so the Palestinian Arabs, I suppose, have a right to be listened and to present their case to the United Nations. I see no wrong in that.
Guys?
Yeah, do you agree with that, Healy? Is that your opinion, too?
No, it is not my opinion. Well, wait a minute. I think that takes some qualification. I believe, and I have always said, and I will stand by this, and for years, that we have been very one-sided in how we have looked at this situation, that there is another side to that story that is only recently, within the last year, been allowed to come out of the United States of America. There is a Palestinian issue. It is an important issue, and you're never going to solve that problem until you hear both sides and come to some kind of an amelioration between them. Now, what I think is wrong is the United Nations inviting Arafat to have come forward, because I do not think it establishes a precedent, and a dangerous precedent, for a non-government figure to come forward to address the United Nations. However, I certainly think that there are plenty of Arab nations in the United Nations who can speak, and but to create an observer force, we then better start doing that in about 40 other nations around the world who are fighting a battle for independence. What I'm saying is, I think the way it was done was wrong, but I certainly think that the Palestinian cause has a right to be heard by the world. I just don't think that they should have a vote at this stage of the game. Right. And I really got to leave you, sir. Thank you for the call. About this discussion, it really is very interesting. I have been doing these kinds of talk shows now for over 13 years. And as this problem has intensified, no matter what I say or what I do, like this last call, if you say, well, the Palestinians have a right to have a voice too, then of course I get all the calls from the emotional Israelis who say, murderer, you're doing all these, why you take this terrible thing, what a horrible position for you. Then if I say something where the Israelis have rights, after all, the Jews have for centuries wandered from place to place looking for a homeland. This seemed to be the answer. And if I take some position which says that the Israelis have rights too, then of course I get the screaming, emotional Arabs on the other side. So no matter what I say, I'm wrong for some people.
No, if they scream equally strong from both sides, you're right.
Well, I always say there's my side, your side, and the truth in between. And I'm hoping to find the truth in between. And I think that's really what you are saying also. Mr. Moore, I think you are saying, look, We can go on screaming about who did what to who and who murdered who and what UN resolution number, so forth and so on. I get this all the time from the Arab League, and I get it from the Israeli representatives, but it doesn't solve anything.
It only obstructs.
And it seems to me that the only thing that can be done is to start talking with each other. Now, you say there is a group of people in Israel and in the Arab lands who are going outside of the Middle East to discuss these things.
I know these people and participated in 2 times of conference like that. But I would like to use this situation to appeal to the American public opinion, to tell them that by taking the one-sided policy, either pro-Arab or pro-Israeli, you don't help the problem to be solved. Because you make only harder the stance, the policies of either the Arab states or Israel. The American policy should be even-handed for peace in the Middle East.
All right, my guests tonight have been Yaron Kahama and also Mr. Nathan Ylin Moore. We will be mainly on an open line basis tomorrow night, but we will also be talking about the Bilderberg. And you stay tuned now, please, for Ron McCoy on KFI Los Angeles.
You're one day.
In the factory there, the worker has a sheet, and he looks and says 5,000 cartons alpha beta, so he puts alpha beta and the eggs come down the line and load. And 5,000 Olsen, so he puts Olsen. Then 5,000, what's the name, the Edho, this home delivery thing, you put 5,000. And they're all the same eggs. And then you can buy the supermarket own brand for, let's say, 50 cents. Right. The Edho for 70 cents. Yeah, the Olsen bargain for 30 cents, and they're all the same eggs.
Yeah, double A, grade double A. Is
and my mother-in-law always buys Edho because it's a good name. It's the same goddamn thing. Incredible.
I'm trying to think, the double A, grade large, isn't that? Is it 30 ounces per dozen? I'm trying to remember.
Well, there is a formula. If the price is more, the difference is more than something, then you should buy the smaller, large, or whatever. But basically, the whole dozen have to be so many ounces.
I think it's 30 ounces. Yeah. I studied poultry husbandry, but it was a long time ago.
I didn't know they made them.
What did you say?
I thought they were the same.
I studied poultry husbandry at one time.
I knew the eggs were pretty similar.
And I have a book that tells how to weight.
Produced by just one, you know.
Oh, yeah. There's Olsen Brothers. They supply just about all of Los Angeles.
Petaluma. And the cheapest henceforth.
Petaluma was the egg capital of the world.
The only difference is what you put into the eggs. For example, the most amazing thing. The most
Teacher point of view was fully acceptable. Why? Because Deir Yassin was on the western outskirts of Jerusalem. Right. If the Arabs would have attacked the main road to the west, Jerusalem would be starved out. Yeah, by the Arabs. So we were vitally interested to keep the road open. Then we proposed to the settlers, to the villagers of Deir Yassin, to make a Brit Shalom, to make a peace agreement between Deir Yassin and the neighboring Jewish settlement Givat Shaul, which was really accepted. But in the meantime, Iraqi irregulars and soldiers infiltrated in that village and started to snipe at the Jewish colony, and also there was a danger that any day they will attack the road and cut off Jerusalem from the main coast. That was the reason, the strategical reason why Deir Yassin was attacked. You see, at that time there was real war between the Jews and the Arab irregulars, which
Wait, hold on a second, sir. Again, he's been putting his earphone down. All right, go ahead now, caller.
Do you think it's a good reason to burn the whole city?
No, that I opposed, and when I got news, when the communication between Jerusalem and the coastal plain was re-established, I reprimanded my own people for attacking this way. But you see, many atrocities were perpetrated also by the Arabs and, of course, by the Jews. And one should keep in mind that the atrocities were on both sides. And many stories were told about the Yassin, which were incorrect. For instance, a delegation of the Israeli Red Cross visited the place and then examined all the dead bodies and found that not one body was mutilated. While in the cases of the Arabs, sometimes Jewish bodies were mutilated in the worst manner. But I in no way accept or claim any unnecessary bloodshed.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir, thank you very much. That, of course, is the cry that we hear most from the Arab side. Remember Deir Yassin. It's a rallying cry, just as I'm sure Masada is for the Israelis, or Pearl Harbor is for America.
You see, I've written about it in the book you mentioned, and I told all the facts, the real facts. I didn't hide any fact. Of course, for me too, it was a shock to learn about a massacre of about 250 Arabs, among them women and children. But this was a result of a prior attack of the irregulars who fired on our men, and a few of them were killed. So our people ran amok, as you say, and they started to go from home to home to throw grenades.
Well, is that, in a sense, the reason why you feel as you do about the PLO? Because by your description, this was a group of your men that you had no contact with, who did something which you would not have accepted or not allowed them to do. And the same thing may be true with Arafat, that there are groups of people that he can't control.
It seems to me that you are right, but in our case, the intention, the plan was not made to kill innocent people. While nowadays, they are intentionally coming to a school or to a private home and killing all the people. This is their plan. We should make a difference between things that happens occasionally and intention, pre-intention.
Well, I think they're at a situation where they're saying anything, we will do anything that will further our goal, because the world has allowed us to sit here for a quarter of a century and done nothing for us. And I'm not condoning what they're doing by any means, but I'm just saying it seems to me that that is in their minds what their justification is.
I don't believe so. I believe it seems to me that they do it only because it's easier for them, because it's difficult to attack Israeli camps or Israeli soldiers or Israeli officers. To occupy a school is very easy because the children are unarmed. This is to go the lightest way, the most easy way. And a liberation movement shouldn't choose this way. It should fight against the occupation forces and not. Movement shouldn't choose this way. It should fight against the occupation forces and not against the...
Well, you confuse me just a little, because on the one hand, if you're saying, they're doing this because it's the easy way and they shouldn't be doing this, it's not the way a liberation force operates. Yeah. But on the other hand, you're saying, let's be understanding of the PLO and let's negotiate with the PLO, because it's a fact of reality. Is that it's a fact of life?
I told you that the PLO, like Zionism, is composed of many factions. And I don't blame the Arafat group, the Fatah, for doing these things is mainly done by the PFL, the Popular Front of Dr. George Habash, or by the people of the High Command of Jibril. So you shouldn't confuse, and you shouldn't put all the blame on Arafat and this man.
All right, let me take a very brief pause here, and we'll get back to my guest, Mr. Nathan Ylin Moore. The telephone number is... yeah, turn your radio down. You are on the air.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You bet.
What do you want to say?
Yes, sir. Is this Ellie Rose?
Yes, it is, sir.
I'll be there.
How about
I've heard a
that?
lot about you. My wife's been listening to you for about 3 years, and she's telling me all about you.
I'm the other man in your life, right?
No, not really.
Okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
Originally, I wanted to call about a couple of things that she called you earlier on. And the only way I could get through is about this Israeli thing. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. We'll be on an open line again tomorrow night, sir, if there's something else you want to talk
Not
about.
tonight, because we tried to get on open line tonight, but we couldn't.
Well, you couldn't make it. I'm sorry.
But that's all right. You know, I'm very interested in this Israeli thing. I'm an American. I have no accent. Born and raised here, and I'm partial. You know what I mean? I have no.
You have sympathy with the Israeli cause? Is that what you're saying?
Or the Arabs.
Both of them.
No way, shape, or form. No way. The only thing I do have is sympathy towards. I don't like news blown up about nothing. You know. In other words, I've been shook up many times over. You know, way back in 1958, 59, 60, 67, again and again and again, and nothing comes of it. You know. Do you understand me?
No, I really don't, sir. What is it you're trying to say?
What I'm saying is why excite the American people about something that doesn't exist.
What doesn't exist?
I don't think a threat of war exists. A threat of all-out war.
There are an awful lot of killed and maimed people in the Middle East who would disagree with you.
On both sides.
On both sides, that's right.
Pardon me, in that country. You know, I wrote an article. I was going to Fullerton Junior College. This is about 2 years ago. And I wrote an article. Remember after the killings in Munich?
Yes.
Do you remember? When the 14 Israelis, I think, were killed?
I think we all remember it, sir.
All right, you remember, I remember. And then shortly after that, many Arabian towns were bombed and strafed. And many children, women, were killed also, you know. Right after that, I wrote an article because it hurt me deeply. It really did. And in the article, I don't have it, I have it.
Well, sir, we're really running out of time. What is the point you want to make?
What I'm saying is why does this thing continue and continue and continue, you know, and
Well, the answer to that really very simply is because nobody has come up with a solution. And thank you for the call. Hi, you're on the air, KFI. Good evening to you. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, you're on the air, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hello?
Yes, sir. Turn your radio down. That tape delay is impossible to talk against.
Oh, okay. Good evening.
Well, sir, I've told you before that you're going to have to turn your radio off, and if you don't do it, we'll go on to another call.
Oh, I have it now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
Now, go ahead. Good evening.
I'd like to talk to Mr. Moore, and the question I have is sort of off of what's normally been brought up there. I was wondering if there's any way I can find out, or if he knows, about any correlation between the American calendar or the calendar we're using and the calendar that the people in Israel are using. Is there any such thing like that?
I'm not sure we understand your question, sir. What do you mean by is there any correlation?
Well, I mean, the year that it is there compared to the year that we have, like...
Okay, my guest is not an expert in this particular area. Do you have any comment?
I will be able to answer. A short answer. Look, please. The Israeli people live according to the general calendar, which is American and English and whatever you want. But for the holidays, they observe it according to the Jewish calendar. That's all.
All right, thank you, sir. Hi, you're on the air, KFI. Good evening, Jay.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
Well, there's so much to say in this here Middle East. I don't usually ever call
you know, there's so many questions to be answered and asked that it's really hard to begin. But first, I'll go pretty fast so I know time is running out. First, this war began because the Arabs decided that they would like to drive Israel into the sea on a holy war. That, of course, didn't turn out too well. Everyone knows that to be a fact. And the other fact is, you asked, I would like to answer that question as to why we have to have an interest in Israel here in America. Was that the question, Mr. Rose?
It was one of the questions. It's been asked a number of times by a number of people.
Good. Now let me answer that perfectly well for you. It isn't our interest so much in Israel as it is for our business factors that we have in Egypt. We have Standard Oil out there, we have oil interests, we have business interests back there, and at the time, if you recall, at the time of that Israel had the war in 73, the Yom Kippur War, which Arab attacked them, they were losing the war. No one decided to stop the war while Israel was losing. Nobody in America. Only when we were 4 miles out of Damascus and 5 miles out of Cairo did we decide to go in and stop the war. Because our interests are lying in the Arab world. Our interests do not lie in Israel. Had they not butt in, had Mr. Kissinger had not stuck his nose where it didn't belong, right now the oils would belong to Israel and we'd have had no problem.
That doesn't seem to answer the question, sir, of why we have an interest in Israel.
Because we have to, because the Arab world embraces the communist world. We do not embrace communism, and neither does Israel. We cannot take, but our factions lie there. Thereby, we have to protect our interest in the Arab world by embracing Israel. There's no other way we can do it.
All right. Thank you very much for the call, sir. Did you want to make any comment on that at all?
No.
We'll go on to another call. Hi, this is Hilly Rose. You're on the air at KFI. Good evening to you.
Yes, hi. First I want to say Mr. Moore is an answer to anti-Semitism. Despite his history, he's about the only one who gives or seems to give a promise of peace, much more so than Hilly with you and your militancy. First I want to chastise you a bit for cutting off the Arab. Now the Arab has a sense of being, has suffered injustice, and his indignation is proper.
His indignation is fair, ma'am. His indignation is fair, and I've heard it until it's coming out of my ears, and it is not.
Yes, has not. Now, yours is not. He has always...
Ma'am, wait a minute. First of all, calm down. I'm perfectly... Wait, because I don't want to do to you what I did to the other man for the same reason. I'm perfectly willing to have a conversation, but when the emotions begin to well up and people begin screaming, well, wait a minute, and people begin screaming, then I cannot allow that to go on. So I don't want to do that to you. Please, let's have a very rational conversation, okay? Now, you go ahead.
I just thought that Mr. Moore might have handled him much more aptly than you did. All right, but
Mr. Moore doesn't know him as well as I do.
Mr. Moore is cool and detached. You are not. All right, but this is a question for Mr. Moore. Israel speaks of peace, and yet, after perhaps he could explain to me the psychology involved. When Quneitra was given to the UN, was it last May? After 7 years of occupation, before the Israelis handed it to the UN, they bombed and bomb blasted the entire city of 50,000 and gave it to the UN in shambles, ruins. Perhaps you could explain to me why.
Okay. He's not quite understanding the question. Let me go over the question again.
I think she said Damascus and she meant Quneitra, the
Right.
I'm not sitting here to defend the policy and the acts of the Israeli government. You see, and I, since 1967, since after the 6 Days War, I preach a reconciliation, a historical reconciliation between the Arabs and Israel. I don't agree with the bombardment of places like Quneitra and others. But on the other hand, you should understand that the Israeli government is under pressure of the population when terrorist acts or so-called terrorist acts are being perpetrated against armed and against innocent women and children. The Israeli government has no other choice, according to their beliefs, than to than to attack places where, according to her belief, terrorists are concentrated. But as I said at the beginning, I am not here to defend the Israeli official.
Let me jump into this for just a second. Well, hold on a second, ma'am. I'll give you your chance. I just want to give you a fact, and you can, do anything you want with it. I have no axe to grind. I don't know who did what to who, but I will tell you that I was in Quneitra in 1968. I was in Quneitra in March of this year, just shortly before it was handed over to the Syrians. I saw very little difference. Well, ma'am, I want to tell you something. You can talk. I saw very little difference in the city of Quneitra between 1968 and 1974. Now, the city was totally destroyed. There was practically nothing that I saw that was standing that you could still call a complete building, with the exception, I think, of a school or something, and it wasn't completely complete. All I'm saying to you is, if indeed the Israelis did what you said they did, and I have no way of knowing, it had to have been done prior to 1968. They claim it was done during the war. And also, Mr. Gahana wants to say something to you.
Yes.
No, hello. I'm afraid that, in a sense, we are losing the sense of the point of why Mr. Moore is here and why he's talking to all of us. He is not here to defend the action of the Israeli government, not actions done last year or 10 years ago or 20 or 30. Rehashing the litany of injustices on both sides can really go on forever. The point that he, and there are apologists on both sides who are perfect at that. This is all they know. Like this gentleman who was first cut off, he knew every battle, every atrocity, every bomb by geographic location at exact date and hour of the day. Going over all that ground really would not help anything. What Mr. Moore is here to say is, he was on the other side, he was in the other fellow's shoes and walked more than a mile in his time. He has a solution, in a sense. He said that Israel has to recognize the legitimate aspirations of the other side, of the Palestinians, not the illegitimate ones, not the claims or the desire to destroy the state of Israel, but the legitimate aspiration. And this should be the point of departure, not who did what to whom, as Hiלי said before.
Okay, ma'am, now I'll let you, say what you want to say, and then I'm going to have to leave you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I don't quite know what to say, except that, as I said, I think Mr. Moore has a promise of peace for Israel.
Fine. Let's all hope so. Thank you very much. And we'll continue and take the final couple of calls in just a moment.
It's to cause joint pain. It can affect the brain. It can affect the heart. It can affect the blood, and often causes anemia and a low white cell count. The most serious involvement, though, in this disease, in terms of fatality, has been in the past when it affects the kidney. And the allergic substances that the body creates then is deposited within the kidney and produces injury to the kidney, and may, in some patients, go on over the course of time, destroy the kidney and produce renal failure or kidney failure. This disease may come and go, it may fluctuate, wax and wane, it may affect one organ one time and another organ another time. It's particularly, it's a disease that particularly affects young women, but not exclusively. And in the case of this patient, she had involvement of the kidney, I guess, about 2 or 3 years before her kidneys finally failed. But she then reached the point, what was it, 4 years ago we're talking about?
Yeah.
Transplant was 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, after the Disneyland thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was 4 years ago that she had her transplant, wasn't it? It was around the 1st of September.
Yeah, I have all the dates.
It's either 4 or 5. Yeah, I think it was the 1st of September in 69, but it could have been 68. I think it was 69. By that stage, she reached the point where her own kidneys would not function. Now, not infrequently in this disease, when kidney failure occurs, the other parts of the disease quiet down. And I think one can say that she has had no evidence of any other organ involvement since the time she went into kidney failure and since her transplant.
Is this heredity or infection?
Most often it is not hereditary, although other diseases like this and that are similar to it, such as rheumatoid arthritis and other diseases that are called connective tissue diseases may sometimes run in families, and it is of considerable interest that her mother, who happened to be the one who gave her the kidney, had a localized form of lupus that just affected the skin. She had what's called discoid lupus, or lupus of the skin. About 95% of the time, patients who have lupus of the skin don't have other involvement, and the mother did not. So there was that interesting hereditary aspect to it, and of course one had to be very careful that the mother had no other evidence of lupus before considering her as a donor for a transplant.
Is it a very rare disease, or?
No, it's not that rare at all. It's not a very common disease, but at the county hospital, for example, it's the 10th commonest cause of admissions on the medical service. Excuse me. Hello? Yeah.
Is it 10th in the county? Nationally, it's also.
Well, I don't know if that's true nationally, but it's not terribly uncommon. It's not a rare disease. It's not the commonest of diseases, but it's not a rare disease.
What will be the usual symptoms? Because she told me, for example, that it took a long time even for the first doctors to...
The usual symptoms of lupus are fever, joint pains, often a skin rash, especially following exposure to the sun on the exposed surfaces, especially across the cheeks and the bridge of the nose. The symptoms of kidney failure, of course, when it occurs, is a different story. Did you want me to discuss that now, or no?
No, basically, I think once we said it's a common disease, people wonder.
Right.
They have that too. You got involved with Tony only after the operation, right?
No, I got involved with her when she developed chronic end-stage kidney disease, and which was a progression of the lupus condition affecting her kidneys. And at that point, her kidney function had reached the point where she could not survive with her own kidney function and was developing symptoms of uremia, such as nausea, vomiting, edema, shortness of breath, mental changes, although she didn't have very much mental changes at that time, and severe anemia and so forth. And at that point, she required dialysis. First, what we call peritoneal dialysis, which is, but first of all, by dialysis, what we mean is using a membrane to substitute for the normal role of the kidney in the removal of waste products from the body. And when we use the abdominal cavity, the membrane lining the abdominal cavity, which is the peritoneal membrane, we call that peritoneal dialysis. And what that involves is putting a spike with a tube in it into the abdomen through a little hole below the umbilicus, and then running fluid in and out over an hour, an exchange of fluid in and out over an hour for about 48 hours. And this fluid then will remove the waste products and take over the job of the kidney. That's only a rather temporary way of solving the problem. Then patients usually go on an artificial kidney program where they have a